I call on members. Order of the day number 1.
Minimum Wage Contractor Remuneration Amendment Bill interrupted debate on first reading.
Members, when we were last debating the Minimum Wage Contractor Remuneration Amendment Bill, Jonathan Young was speaking and has 4 minutes remaining. The next call is a Labor call. Sue Moroney.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. It's a pleasure to rise in support of this very good bill that has been brought to the House in the name of my colleague, the Honourable David Parker. I want to congratulate him for having this bill drawn. It's a very important bill. It's about minimum wages for people who are classified or known as being contractors. And this should be a no-brainer, actually, for a civilised society, that when we set a minimum wage for all New Zealanders that are on paid work, this bill is really going to be the expression of whether this Parliament believes that that should be extended to all people who are in fact in paid employment. Because what we have is a situation that certainly the Labour Party believes is untenable and unfair, and not the sort of decent society that we believe all New Zealanders expect from a civilised society, and that is that people who are doing, who are providing a service, they should be at least paid the minimum wage. But for many New Zealanders, that is not currently the case. And I want to give a few examples of the types of work that now fall into this category, because Mr Speaker, once upon a time when we talked about employees and we talked about workers, it all used to mean the same thing. It all was basically a 9-to-5 job, and it was an employment relationship. But these days, some of the work that was traditionally done in that way is being done by people who have no option but to do it as independent contractors. They have no option to do it as independent contractors because that is a requirement of the person who would once have been called their employer. People who deliver pamphlets are often employed in this way. So this is obviously work. It's work that needs to be paid for, but far too often these people are paid less than the minimum wage because they are offered it as an independent contractor, and they are given an amount of money to deliver X number of pamphlets. And depending on the terrain that they are working in, or the weather, or the nature of the pamphlet that they're delivering, it might take them longer than was anticipated. And when that's broken down hour by hour, it sadly often means that they are being paid less than the minimum wage for that work. But another example that's much closer to my heart is because it happens to be an area of work that is largely performed by women, and that is the area of home-based care. Home-based care for the elderly, for the disabled, for people who need to have personal cares taken care of in their own home environment. That is also an area that is predominantly, I would say, contracted out, that is done in this way, where there's a number of hours that, not a number of hours, there's a care package that is contracted for, and there's a certain amount of remuneration that is given to the people who perform that very important work, and it doesn't really matter how many hours it takes them to perform that work, they will just get that same amount of money. Now, for far too long in this country, here's what's transpired through that very important work. That because people have to travel to get to the homes to deliver the care, that often, if we took from the time that they started their work at the beginning of the day to the time that they finished their work, if you broke that down as an hourly rate, those women were often ending up getting paid less than the minimum wage. So that's the importance of this bill. It would ensure that that could never happen. That however the employment situation is described, however the employment relationship is structured, that we would always ensure, as we should in a civilised and decent society, that people doing all of that important work would at least get the minimum wage. And I say at least get the minimum wage advisedly, sir, because it is my belief that women performing that very important work in people's homes that actually requires a lot of mental energy, a lot of knowledge, a lot of physical activity, should in fact be getting paid more than the minimum wage, but this bill will do for me now.
Speaker.